Welcome, everybody, to Confessions of a GroupX Instructor podcast. I have Ingrid here with me today. Ingrid, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Let's see, Ingrid, you and I actually did meet one another, sort of, right?
Yes, I attended your session at the Last Idea conference in
She,
LA.
yeah. And we're going to reunite there soon, which we'll
Yeah.
get to. She attended my session, was the business one, right?
Yes, you were full of ideas on creating social events at one's studio or facility.
Yeah, that was a fun session. I really enjoyed it. So that was kind of in the business track
Hmm.
that idea has. So, all right, I want to introduce you to our audience just by way, I just want to read your bio so they can kind of get the bird's eye view of your life and what you're doing, and then we'll get into our fun conversation. At the helm of fitness programming for Fitness World Canada, Ingrid oversees 150 fitness instructors and creates innovative class experiences for 80,000 members across 16 club locations as director of fitness classes. She has a bachelor's degree in human kinetics and Master of Science degree in exercise health psychology, and regularly presents at global industry events and conferences such as Idea World, URSA, and CanFit Pro. Ingrid is a thought leader and sought after presenter with expertise in fitness programming, management, and leadership. A former US national team member in rhythmic gymnastics, Ingrid parlayed her passion for competitive sport into educating and motivating others to live their best life through self-discovery and pursuit of transformative personal journey of health and wellness. Oh, you oversee a lot of instructors for a lot of clubs and serve a lot of
Yeah,
members. That's
never a dull
massive.
moment for sure.
Well, tell us a little bit in your words, a little bit more about yourself. Like, obviously you're in Canada based on where you work, but tell us like where you are and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm actually a New Yorker, first and foremost. I was born and raised in Midtown Manhattan. My parents both worked for the United Nations, so that was my upbringing there. But I was an energetic kid, and my mom got me into gymnastics at a young age. And I ended up in rhythmic gymnastics, which, if your viewers aren't familiar, that's the variety with the ribbon and the ball and the skip rope and hoop. So it's a little more dance oriented, but that definitely became my passion. And I made the junior US national team at age 13. So yeah, it was 11 years of nonstop training and competing and, competing internationally, which was awesome, but fairly intense. But that was part of why I ended up in Vancouver, Canada, which is where I ended up staying, because there was a coach out there, and I really wanted someone to help propel me from the junior national team to the senior national team. So I ended up here and attended the University of BC and continued to compete, and basically realized when I was ready to retire from competing that, looking towards a profession and a career, I definitely was not interested in sitting still. So something in the direction of sport, health, wellness, and performance, that was the direction that I wanted to pursue. So then I ended up getting my degree in human kinetics.
That's perfect. How did you decide to retire from that? Was it time? Was it like you were at the age where that happens, or was it
Yeah,
bittersweet?
it's always a tough decision for any athlete, because that transition to real life is is pretty challenging. But at least with rhythmic gymnastics, there's a little more longevity in comparison to artistic gymnastics, which is a little harder on the body. But I think at around age 19, 20, was kind of like, I think it's probably getting to be enough now, and I should move on. But there was the Pan American Games in my last year of competition that I really wanted to be a part of. So I kind of made that my last hurrah, so to speak, and plan to retire after that. And that worked out well.
Mm. Your life is remarkable and incredible, and it's an honor. It really is an honor.
Everyone's got a story.
Oh, it's amazing. I can't believe all that you've done already in your life is really, it's amazing. So how did you get started in group fitness? So you got your degree, and then how did you end up in
Yeah,
group exercise? What's your
well, it's a funny story because it was kind of all mixed in with my training as a rhythmic gymnast. My coach basically told me that I needed to improve my stamina and to start running. And I was like, okay. So that just sounds, really not fun, but there I am, just kind of going on runs, and I literally ran past a fitness studio, and it was the summertime, the windows were open and music was blaring, and I just heard a whole bunch of people like hooting and hollering and like having a great time. So I peek in and I saw what I now know was a hip hop step class. So
Oh
that
my
dates me a little
goodness.
bit, but that's what was going on in there. And I was like, that looks way more fun than going for a jog for cardio. So I signed up for a student membership, and 6 months later, I got my certification to teach classes myself. And it was a very satisfying pursuit, not only to support my athletic training, but as I retired from competing, it was like this, it satisfied this performance element, like kind of
Right.
being in front of the crowd.
Yeah,
It was a really
totally.
good segue into, and then of course from there, all the learning around like, gosh, I'm really motivated to do this. How come the vast majority of the population isn't? There's an
Yeah.
opportunity there to really dig into. That's how I got into doing my master's degree as well in exercise and health psychology. I was really interested in how come some people are really motivated to be healthy and fit and others
Mm.
aren't. So it was an interesting journey.
Ah, and then, so you started teaching, and how old were you then? You were a college student?
Yeah, that
Okay.
would have been ages kind of 20, 21, 22.
All
Yeah.
right. And so what did you start teaching? Was it a hip hop step, or was it your, what did
Pretty
you start?
much. Yeah. I started with step,
Oh,
and
oh,
then I kind of went on to get my personal training certification, and the company that I worked for had some like corporate contracts. So that involved kind of going to company fitness facilities and leading classes there. So I just got into kind of a variety of fitness formats from
mhm.
then on. But yeah, it's been nothing but fitness ever since.
That's awesome. It's just amazing to be able to find work and pay a paycheck and in what we love so much. It is
Exactly.
just uh, so speaking of work and a paycheck, tell me about this massive enterprise, your your day job. How did you
Yes.
go from teaching classes? Because management and leadership and admin is different. It's a different skill set. Like how did you fall into that? Was that just looking for full-time work? How'd you have that opportunity? And tell us about this Fitness World Canada, because I don't, the only time I've been, by the way,
Okay.
to Canada,
Uh-huh.
hold
Because
on,
you're not far
is
away. You're just
I'm not that far away
down
from you.
south of
I'm
us.
close to you. I'm close. We're gonna connect. We're gonna.
Exactly.
You're a road trip away. But I have gone to Toronto, of course, for CanFit Pro last August, first time there. And then, were you there at that event? No,
No, I was not there in
that's
person.
right. Okay,
Yeah.
we talked about that on the phone. But
Hmm.
then I went to BC. I wish I would have known. I
Oh,
went for the Beyonce concert.
no way.
Oh, and I literally was like trying to find a way to write off the trip.
Oh,
No, I'm not
yeah.
kidding. I was like, how can
Well,
I write
next
this off?
time for
Who can I
sure.
go? What classes can I take or teach, or what can I do to work there?
Oh
Like,
my
can I
gosh.
do a pop-up somewhere? And I was like, who do I know? I even posted on Facebook, like, who lives in
Oh,
Vancouver? And
opportunity missed.
I'm
Well, next
so
time for
sad,
sure.
but anyway, I did go have the best time at Beyonce. All right, so anyway, tell
I
us
bet.
about Fitness World Canada.
Yeah, well, gosh, I did start in the industry, actually as a contracted personal trainer back in the day, working for the YWCA. And it was actually there that I got the opportunity to kind of get into management. So I was actually at the YWCA for 8 years, managing their health and fitness center.
Okay.
And then I was kind of invited to join what was then Steve Nash Fitness World and Sports Clubs.
Okay.
So that was an entity here that I was a part of for a decade, until March 2020. So that's when we
Oh,
kind of, all had the roller coaster ride.
yes.
But we reemerged after that. 4 months later, actually, we reopened in August of 2020 as Fitness World Canada,
Whoa.
with most of our locations. We had 23 locations as Steve Nash Fitness Clubs, and we reopened with 16 locations as Fitness World Canada.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
How did you reopen 4 months into the pandemic? You just
it was a pretty
did.
amazing leadership pivot.
Yeah.
Just some renegotiations
Yeah.
with some banks and some great partnerships. But yeah, I mean, it was really, as we all know, it was a tough go, but we were very committed to, being there for both our staff and our members. And we've been quite successful and are currently the largest provider of fitness in the province. So
Are you kidding me? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's been a pretty awesome ride, but I've been lucky enough to really, be at the forefront of all of the class programming. So I get to, wear my creative hat and just kind of invent new formats and teach instructors how to teach those formats and oversee, everything that each individual club needs. Because as we know, each studio, each club has its own character and needs. So it's kind of fun to kind of schedule based on that.
Okay, so speaking of you creating programming and formatting for group fitness, this
Yes.
is why we are here today. We want to learn about your brand new program. And I am like really, really, really excited about it and for you. And I think this is just exactly why this podcast exists, to show people what's out there, to open their eyes and minds to new things. And you've created something really unique. So tell us what it's called, how to pronounce it.
Yeah, it's an unusual word, but I've created several formats, over the years, but this was really the first one that I thought, you know what, I think I got something pretty special here. So the name of the class format is Msingi, Msingi, and it's actually a Swahili word, and the word itself means base or foundational. And I just thought that was kind of a beautiful place to start from a perspective of, I've been in the industry for a long time and we've gotten very good at making fitness very complex.
Mm,
And I think it overwhelms a lot of folks. So I wanted to kind of pare back and just think, well, what do people fundamentally need?
mm,
Well, they need lower body movement, they need upper body movement, they need core movement, but movement is movement.
mhm,
So I kind of dialed it back to 11 foundational exercises or movements. And then I realized that, again, with this spirit of Eastern Africa,
mm,
and really kind of honoring the planet, then
mm,
taking the elements of earth, wind, and fire was a great language or lens to look through the idea of progressions.
mm.
So
Tell
yeah,
us,
that's kind
yes.
of
So,
how it all
okay,
came to be.
what are some examples of the 11 foundational moves? And then tell us about the what in your programming, this earth, wind, and fire concept. You and I spoke a little bit on the phone about it, and I
Mhm.
remember what you said, and it was really interesting. And I love the metaphor of it all too. Each of
Right, right.
those. Okay, so what are some of the
Yeah, I
foundational
mean,
moves?
again, it's I guess an example would be, the simple squat,
Yeah.
right? So we start with a side step squat. That would be the earth movement.
Mhm.
And the wind movement, you add a trunk rotation every time you step to the side. And then the fire variation, you add plyometrics. So in that way, you have, a fundamental movement that then adds, rotation or balance and core strength, and then you add the impact. But if someone doesn't want the impact, they can always dial it back and just stay with the earth variation.
And didn't you tell me that in the wind, category or layer. I don't know what verbiage you use around your
Mhm.
movement progressions, but that sometimes the balance is also incorporated.
Yeah, yeah. So another example would be one of the movements is just a hip hinge.
Hmm.
So you would start out with doing that on two legs, and
Yeah.
then the wind variation is into single legs, and you add an arm movement to that. So again, you're challenging your core stability, and certainly balance is important for all of us, let alone an active aging population. So
Is an active aging population part of like part of who you're targeting with this branding, or is it really just all?
It's I'm getting I'm getting high performance athletes in my classes.
Ah,
I'm getting seniors in my classes. I really want this to really break down barriers. And the other really cool thing about the word Masingi, it can also be a name. It can be an individual's name. And in that
oh,
context, it actually means to come together.
oh,
So I thought that was another cool layer of the word because that's what group fitness has always been about,
ah,
right? Like bringing a community together to just be
yes.
active and enjoy being healthy together. So that was, another component of it all. But the other thing of it is, I mean, I'm not African per se. I mean, that's where we all originated 60,000 years ago. But the Swahili language and culture has kind of a special place in my heart because
Mm,
I did get the opportunity to live in Nairobi
oh,
between the ages of 10 and 13.
wow.
So
Oh,
my dad was transferred there with his job, and yeah, I had the experience of a lifetime that has always
unbelievable
had a profound impact.
on your life.
I've carried it with me, and I've always kind of wanted to see, well, how can I infuse the rhythms, the cultures, the landscape, the animals
Uh,
of the Serengeti, of Masai Mara, of that
oh,
region into, the traditional fitness mix. And I think there's a lot of really special, inspiring components of that.
yeah, I'm excited to get to music, but before we do, I
Hmm.
I love the I love the imagery that goes with this earth, wind, fire, and how, again, metaphorically, like the idea of the earth and your foundational moves and being grounded, that just is so intuitive as a metaphor. And then the wind, when you mentioned that to me over the phone, and I was imagining balancing on
Mm.
one leg and how the wind, is my core stable? Would I be able to withstand the wind? And then fire being like the cardio, maybe we're adding propulsion or plyometrics and
Yeah,
we're getting breathless and it's that cardio fire. And
absolutely.
it's just so beautiful. It's so well thought through. And I can see why you were like, aha, okay,
Yeah.
this is it. I've done a lot of programming, but I'm onto something really special here. So I don't know, is there anything more you want to say or add about why you decided to create it? Or was it just like you're creating different programming, you've been creating different programming, started to create this, and then you were just like, aha, or
Mm.
was there a deeper why to it? I also want to know, so maybe these are two separate questions, depending on how you want to go with this. I'm really excited to hear you say what distinguishes this format, Msingi, from other formats out there.
Great questions. I think to answer your first question in terms of, yeah, again, how it all came to be, I think I was looking for, quite frankly, a movement practice for myself. Uh, During the pandemic, we're sitting indoors going like, okay, I'm limited on equipment, I'm limited on space. I don't really want to do yoga. I want a little more fluidity and movement to that. And I also really like grooving to Afro beats. So how can I put this all together? And I realized, these conversations that the whole industry is having in terms of, inclusivity, diversity, breaking down barriers. This is a format that you don't need anything except, well, a yoga mat or two. It's nice to create a plus sign with those
Uh-huh.
yoga mats because it's multi-directional. At some point, I'm going to be manufacturing circular yoga mats. It's coming. They exist, but they're very expensive, so I got to figure that out. But basically, a yoga mat, you don't need shoes, and you just need loose, comfortable clothing, and the beat of Afro beats is just very well paced, and I know we'll get into that in a moment, but those are pretty simple components that again will hopefully draw in participation from people who otherwise felt you know, not included or haven't had a sense of belonging.
Yeah. I like that you said that you created something for yourself. I like that because I can relate to that a little bit with my Warrior Rhythm program. Well, actually with all my programs, but with Warrior Rhythm, I was just really like one of those people that struggled with boredom during yoga. And I felt like kind of like, you know, a little ADHD about it. And I felt like it didn't suit my temperament very well. And I thought, well, if I feel this way, then there's probably other people out there that feel the same way. And so
Absolutely.
and so then I created something kind of what would be my favorite things I could you know, my favorite things I could put together in one workout was kind of how I selfishly design rhythm, thinking and believing and feeling confident that there's going to be other people out there like me. I don't need to be all things to all people, but also the other reason I like that you kind of did it, and I say similarly created something that I personally wanted, is there's an authenticity piece to that too. Is there's an authentic like love and passion about what you brought into the world because it really is what you love the most and feel like doing the most. So I just love the authenticity of that. That's all. And
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that makes sense, and I think yeah, perhaps not for everyone, but I think for the most part, the feedback that I am getting from people who are trying it, you know, it's this combination of you get to sweat a little bit, but then you get to stretch. There's a lot of mobility components.
Okay.
And there's kind of a primal flavor to things, and each of the 11 foundational movements actually has an animal inspiration. So again, along with, you know, earth, wind, and fire, you can definitely relate. If I tell you pounce like a lion, that makes sense, right? Like you can connect with that. So I think there's a lot of just fundamental language and cueing that are really resonating with folks.
I also like that you said that it's fairly simple. I agree with you that you can see this on Instagram, you know, when you're looking through different types of, you know, fitness accounts and stuff. Sometimes you almost see it taken too far. Like you ask yourself like, wait, what? Okay, that looks cool and clever and creative, but what's the purpose of the exercise? What are my
Yeah,
prime movers? Why am I doing this? Is
right.
it effective? You know, is it really
Is it safe?
effective? Or is it or is it safe? Or is it just cool looking? And
Right.
I think with the boom of like Instagram fitness, I do see some of that. And I think there's a fine line between being creative and having an original flavor and doing things unique with a brand and with programming and sticking to the fundamentals. A squat is a squat is a squat for a reason. A hinge is a hinge for a reason. Those are elemental for a reason.
Yes.
So anyway, that's a little side note, but your program is different already. We can hear from so many reasons. The name is unique. I'm not familiar with that name. That's new to me. It tickles my ear. It's new. The language that you're using with the earth and the wind and the fire is unique, and the adding the animal names is unique, and so much of it already is interesting and different. But let's let's dive into music, because when you first reached out to me, which we didn't even talk about this, but Ingrid reached out to me through LinkedIn, and I want to just tell everyone in the world that I'm not very good at LinkedIn. I'm trying to be a grown-up big girl that is a LinkedIn kind of a professional. I'm working on it, baby steps. Give me some grace, but I'm really bad about like checking the messages there and all that stuff. So anyway, I can't believe I even like saw your message. So I saw a message from her just wanting to kind of connect and pick my brain about, because I'm kind of doing like the same thing. I just, I started my own format also before you, a tiny, tiny, tiny bit in the beginning of the pandemic. And kind of am doing this conferencing. So Ingrid reaches out to me with some questions on LinkedIn, and we ended up getting on a phone call. I didn't even think about podcasting with you. That was not on my radar.
Ah,
I just wanted to answer your questions over the phone as opposed to in an email. And then when I got to hear about you and how interesting you were, I was like, this is perfect for my podcast. So here we are. So anyway, what I think is so unbelievably, incredibly different and exciting about your program is the music. So you
mm,
use Afro beats, and I would love for you to tell us, take us there. What are Afro beats? Where did it, what is this genre of music? Where did it originate? Why are you using it? And all of it.
well, I think everything I've described so far, whether it's, earth, wind, and fire or animal inspirations, all of the movements are driven by a tempo. And Afro beats, of course, just is kind of this lovely wrapping of the of the whole package, but it's integral and critical to the whole Masingi experience. Um, Afrobeats in and of itself as a music genre is primarily out of Nigeria, but I mean, really, it's from a multitude of different African countries. And I think with all due respect to anyone listening, as a culture, in North America, we're quite ignorant when it comes to, uh, you know, Africa. It's a continent. There's over 50 countries and over 1,000 languages. So it's of course a very diverse place in and of itself. But what we've seen, especially over the last, I would say, 5 years, has been this really cool awareness of and global popularity of Afrobeats as a music genre. We're seeing it in movies like Black Panther and Beyonce. We were talking about her concert that you went to. She remade The Lion King and collaborated with a lot of popular Afrobeat artists. So it's really kind of elevated itself into, well, we're very, of course, North American centric, but it's kind of become mainstream from our perspective. But it's been mainstream in Africa for a long time. But we're finally getting to benefit from it, and it's just a really catchy, upbeat tempo, but it's like a mellow tempo, if that makes sense. Um, Afrobeat
Yes.
songs are typically around 110, 115 BPM.
Okay.
So they're not super fast, but it
Okay.
allows you, it's kind of like a casual walking pace, but you
Okay.
can kind of move what I call moving on tempo or moving at half tempo.
Hmm.
So it allows for a really controllable, safe pace to
Hmm.
do a lot of the movements, but you can also kind of add a pulse or add a jump to pick up pace if you need.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it actually makes perfect sense. I'm with you. I get
Yeah,
it.
so I mean, both from the perspective of, an African-inspired movement practice,
Mhm.
of course, it complements from a cultural perspective, but it also complements from a pacing perspective.
I did, after we spoke, I did Google Afro beats, and I read about the sort of the history, and I listened. And one of the things that I took away from listening to some really cool YouTube conglomerations of Afrobeat, it was is that all of it felt uplifting and happy. It all had this, like, because I love all kinds of music. I love all kinds of music, but what better to marry with an exercise format that's something that it all just felt good and it made me feel like moving. So
That's
it's pretty
that's
special.
wonderful that you pick up on that because, I think in this day and age as well, we've kind of relaxed as an industry, and just, the whole, explicit lyrics, and there's a lot of there's a lot of negativity in lyrics that, we just kind of accept nowadays, and it's kind of like lyrics seep in. They seep in
Huh.
on a cellular level, in my opinion.
They
And I
do.
think when you surround yourself by positive with positive people and doing positive things and hearing positive language, it has an impact. So I appreciate that about Afrobeats as well. I would agree. It's for the most part, it's always talking about positive things.
I'm sure this like stimulates your exercise psychology brain and your all your study, but Yeah, I agree. It's just like what we put, it's just the same thing as like what we put in our body, what we eat, what we put on our skin, the influences, our
Absolutely.
friendships, the people we follow on Instagram, the lyrics of the songs we listen to. It all is shaping who we are. And again, not just in the lyrics, but also in the tone of music. Like I do like all
Mhm.
kinds. So I even like music that might sound a little angry or something like that. But we need to tread with caution and just know, I mean, that can be motivating too,
For sure.
lifting weights, just
Everything
something like that. But
has its
it,
purpose, but
yeah, it does, but just to be aware and yeah, it's
absolutely.
just yeah, like I sometimes think about that. Sometimes I listen to things at night before bed, whether podcasts or music, and I just think like if I fall asleep and this is on, like it's still working on me. It's still
Oh yeah,
working on me even if I'm asleep. So I need to be
absolutely.
careful what I'm putting in.
For sure.
So, do you think that with Afro beats, do you think that this will appeal to African American instructors and communities?
I would hope so, and I think so. It's we've and happily so, we've gotten more culturally diverse in all spaces, but in the fitness space as well. I think everyone kind of automatically thinks about Zumba as being a
Yeah.
Latin centric, of course, global phenomenon. uh, of course we have yoga, originating from India. So how about something that is from an Afrocentric perspective? And I think African Americans are going to definitely, see themselves reflected in that culture, and want to pursue and hopefully get engaged in becoming a Masingi instructor or participating in Masingi classes.
Well, I am so excited for you. I'm really drawn to people and interested in people who are creative and original and unique and find new concepts or go against the grain or do things out of the box. And I honestly feel like you're onto something. I
Oh,
think
thank
I
you.
think that the success of a program like it you're not reinventing a wheel here. And it's there's nothing like it. There's not a format like it. And I
Mhm.
know you're going to be successful because of that. I know that
Thank
you're
you.
going to be successful. I couldn't be happier for you. And I barely know you, but I
Oh,
feel
that's so
incredibly
kind.
proud of you,
Well,
happy to know
we're
you. And I'm just going to watch you be the next Zumba, okay? So I'm here
Well,
for it.
that's the goal, global domination, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in great company, of course. You're forging the way with a fantastic brand that's
Thank
really
you.
captivating as well and accessible.
Thank you.
So I think, our industry in general, I would say, like, we don't need to have a piece of the pie mentality, because there's
That's right.
so many people that we need to serve. So the more variety, diversity, options that we can give people, the better we all are. So
I
I'm in the journey with you.
Yeah, I so agree. And I feel like the industry, I'll say this because in some ways, I'm just like a step. My programming has been out just a little longer than yours. So I want to encourage you by saying that I feel incredible receptivity, almost thirst and hunger for newness. I feel like it's the industry right now is ripe for new and different. And so I'm excited. Yes, come on in, the water's warm. It's not a piece of pie. If
Fantastic.
they if
Okay.
they if they if they decide to get certified in Masingi and not warrior, it doesn't mean there's less for me. We're on this, it's we're on the
Right.
we're on the same team. So
Awesome.
okay, so I do end my podcast with a confession, and I would love to hear, like, what did you come up with? Do you have a confession for us today?
Oh my gosh. I wish I had something like exciting and salacious, but I really don't. Goodness. I mean, I guess in addition to, doing what I do, which is, a fantastic job that I love, I'm also always planning a vacation. So I love to my family and I, we just love to, book amazing destinations. So right now I'm planning a cruise in Italy in
Oh,
2025,
yes.
and that's what my husband's aware of. What he's not aware of yet is I've got plans for 2026 and 2027 as well. So there you go. Always having something on the horizon to train for and look forward for, all of that. It's all good.
It's probably quite restorative too, with all the hard work. And are you someone
Sure.
that likes the anticipation, like knowing that vacation is planned, like the anticipation that it's coming, is that just as satisfying as the vacation itself?
Typically, yeah. And I mean, I also like to compete in events.
Oh,
So sometimes it's the kind of the combination of there's that something to train for, and then turn that once the event is over to turn that into a vacation. It's a nice kind of thing
oh,
to tie
okay.
it all in. So yeah, that's another strategy. Just kind of keeping my own training on point and my own, goals, but also having the dessert, so to speak.
See, this is your exercise psychology
There
again.
we go. There
It
we
is.
go.
You're the reward. I love it
For
so much.
sure.
Okay, so okay, I need to tell the audience something. I was going to release this episode later, after the two that I have already in the pipeline. In fact, in my next solo episode that you will hear, I actually tease out this interview that I
I've
knew was
messed up
going
your
to happen.
schedule. Sorry.
No, I know. I know. So Ingrid messed me up today, but here's the deal. So I'll just gonna say I do, because you're gonna hear this episode first now. So the next episode you hear is gonna be a solo episode where I go into what it takes and how to create your own format. And then the following week is really cool. It's gonna be what it takes and how to own your own studio. So those two kind of go together. So in my solo episode, I was so excited about interviewing Ingrid that I talk about it. I mean, I didn't say her name and I didn't say Masingi. I just said I'm gonna be interviewing soon this amazing woman who has this original program, and I can't wait to so I teased that episode. So anyway, I was talking to Ingrid before we started to record today, and she has an opportunity. Oh, I need to ask you a couple more questions before we go here about your certification, like what it entails. I forgot to ask you that. I need to go back
Okay.
there in just a second. So she's going to tell us what all her certification process that it entails, how to do it. And because she has an opportunity coming up, it's time sensitive. It's in like
Yes.
it's in like 2 or 3 weeks. So because of that, I want to help her, and I want to launch this episode first. So anyway, this episode is going to come first. Then you're going to hear an episode where I talk about it as if it hasn't happened yet. All right, Ingrid, tell us about the certification process, please.
Okay. So yes, there is a full-fledged Masingi Master Trainer certification course. Ideally for existing group fitness instructors or personal trainers, I think it's important to have a foundation as a prerequisite, because you're going to have a much more successful time grasping all of the cueing and being able to deliver fantastic Masingi classes. That said, it is a 6-hour in-person or online course with some additional hours expected after the fact, because I do expect a video submission to sign off on any Masingi Master Trainer. But it's going to be subscription based. However, I want to emphasize that it's not pre-choreographed. Masingi gives you the tools and structure, but then instructors get to mix and match and create their own classes based
Oh,
on playlists that I provide through the Vibes music app. So
yes.
there's kind of two things that I'm plugging today, and that is my next course is on March 2nd. Folks can go to masingimovement.ca to learn more about Masingi and also register for the course. And then secondly, getting onto the Vibes music app is a fantastic way to get your royalty-free music. Trust me, they're the only music app that has Afro beats.
Mhm.
So if you want to just, be at peace with your liability as it pertains to music rights, Vibes is the way to go. And I'm just going to announce it here. You're going to get a 15% discount by using the code Masingi 2024. So
Awesome.
there you have it.
Can I clarify a couple things that I heard you say? Did you say it's a prerequisite that they have their national certification, a prereq
Yes.
in group fitness and or PT?
And or a dance degree and or a
A degree in
physio
a related
degree.
field, like.
Exactly. It's
Mhm,
very broad, but
mhm,
I just like to know that people aren't coming in completely green because
mhm.
I am going to be talking about, core engagement and certain names and of traditional exercises that we then tweak to make them Masingi exercises. But I think, this is evolving. This is still a program in its
Yeah,
infancy. And I think we kind of touched on this a little bit in our conversation before too. There's kind of the pros and cons of creating barriers, really.
yeah,
But
friction.
I would still, even if one doesn't have a certification, I would encourage you to reach out because I have a lot of information on,
Great,
really practical ways to go about it. But my goal is to set everyone up for success. And the
great.
realities, if you have zero fitness background and you just jump into taking the course, I mean, you're still going to benefit. But if you actually want to teach and be successful at teaching, you're going to need more than just a Masingi course.
So then they submit a video
Yeah.
and you're gonna review it, and then how long till they expect, do they have a certain amount of time to submit that video?
They have 90 days.
Okay,
And
okay.
we stay in constant contact. I love getting the videos as soon as possible. It gives me an opportunity to give feedback. So that's a process that, most instructors, we might be veering off on a little bit of a tangent, but in my 25 years doing this, what I
Mhm,
know for sure is that instructors crave and deserve feedback. And
mhm,
it's very rare that instructors are getting annual, let alone more frequent, uh, performance reviews.
mm.
What are they doing well? Where can they improve? And this is a process that really incorporates
Allows
that
for that, yeah.
and is very beneficial.
I see. So then, oh, so you said then the next one opens March 9th, and that is
Oh, March
there's so
2nd.
that's what I meant. Thank you. March 2nd, March 2nd,
Oh.
March 2nd. So, and then do you have, is it through Zoom? So that
Yes,
people from all over, anywhere, international, is time zones just need
exactly.
to match, and you're in the Pacific Standard
I'm
Time
in the
Zone,
Pacific, yeah.
and
So
it's
it
a
is
six
from
hour, so 6 hours live, and then this group, are they kind of almost like a cohort? Like, do they get to
Yeah,
connect
yeah.
and have?
Typically, this will be my third course, and what I found is that yeah, they create chat groups, and it's a great way to just get support from one another and share ideas. They send video clips to themselves to each other first, and it's a very collaborative process, and again very beneficial for the learning process.
All right. Well, I will put the website, all of that stuff, Vibes app, everything you said, we can put in the show notes. You guys can check that out for links. Also, before we totally wrap, where can they find you? How can they follow you? We know you're on LinkedIn, and I found you on
Yes,
Instagram too, which is
which
like more my home base.
again, I'm not the best at that either, but you can find me on Instagram, either my name, I Night Kohi, which is a mouthful, I know, or Masingi Movement.
Okay.
That's
Is it
probably the
Instagram?
easiest.
Oh, I don't think I'm following Masingi movement, but I will as soon as we
Okay.
stop recording. And then also, where can they find you? I know you're presenting at IDEA this year.
Yes.
Two
Well, I think
sessions.
depending on when this is released, there is the Idea ACSM Summit on February 24th. I'll be doing a Masingi session there.
In Chicago.
Yes,
Yes,
in
okay.
Chicago, as well as the full Idea World Conference in July. Right now, I'm not slated to do a Masingi session, but I will be there delivering two other sessions that are more on the business track.
Okay.
Uh, well, one is called Grow Your Classes, so I'll probably plug Masingi in there somehow. And the other one, believe it or not, the other one is all about pickleball.
Oh, I
And
believe it. Oh, I
that,
believe it.
hey, we know that that's like just
It's the
incredibly
rage.
popular.
It's
So putting together a pickleball class is something that, most programmers are hopefully scratching their head thinking, how am I going to put this together? So I've got some ideas around that.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for carving out some of your busy week and your busy day to
Likewise.
bless our audience with all of your everything you bring to the table. I'm so excited about your program, and I wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ellen. This was really a lot of fun.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.